Very excited to have longtime collaborator with FoMO, Dustin Stockton, on the show. We've got a picture of the statue that's been made, funded through the PATRIOT tokens. This is called the Don Colossus. Dustin, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you on.
What's up, FOMO fam? Good to see everybody, or talk with everybody, I suppose. And yeah, man, what epic ride it's been. I feel like I'm on the home stretch, but really, it's like we. I've got the inauguration coming up. We're gonna unveil the statue there, and then start touring it around the country. And yeah, massive project. It's been pretty exciting to be involved in, like from the beginning of this thing. The statue, it's giant. It's made of bronze, 2 stories tall, like very Trumpian in the iconic fist in the air, fight, fight, fight pose. And to get it unveiled in Washington, D.C. has been a massive logistical lift, as you might imagine, with all of the security and road closures and coordination with all of the government bureaucracies you have to coordinate with to be part of something like the inauguration. So I'm excited to get to DC, get the statue unveiled, go to all the balls, and celebrate the fact that, man, we are entering the crypto era, boys. It's gonna be legendary.
Kudos for for our FOMO listeners who don't know Dustin. I think of you as the face and the voice of the MAGA movement. So I think the Don Colossus is, I don't know if it was your idea or if you stumbled across it, but I know that you will use it to galvanize and reinvigorate, I don't know, the populists of America. So I was very glad to see. I'm happy to see you in that project. So you said you're going to be touring it around the country. What kind of message are you going to? What kind of message are you going to be carrying with you whenever you make that tour?
Well, you're gonna love this, Lucas, and I appreciate the kind words. Um, the statue, I expect, is going to be dramatically more famous than any of us will ever be after what happens at the inauguration. I mean, the number of people who are going to see this, I think it's the perfect clickbait, right? So, like, if you're on the right and you love Trump, you love the Don Colossus. If you're on the left, this is like the worst thing that has ever happened to you in your entire life, right? Like, how dare these people with their giant statue of President Trump in bronze? Blah. So I think it's going to generate a massive amount of attention. And then what's cool is that it becomes like a giant spotlight. And so the plan is to use it in several ways. Number one, we're going to make it available to help raise money for quality causes and charities, things like Tunnels to Towers and the Sinise Foundation and like Wounded Warriors. So, right, like if they need help drawing attention to a fundraiser or an event of some kind, we can bring the statue to them. And then I've also pledged to bring it to the districts of anybody on the right who opposes any of the Trump nominees or the Trump agenda. And so, like, I will use the statue to rally people, uh, to emphasize challengers to these different like candidates and other stuff. And then the general vibe though is one of celebration. So like I'm calling it the Patriot Maha AI Circus. And the idea is going to be that like when the statue rolls into your city or town and we throw a big, like it's gonna be a big party. We're gonna barbecue and we're gonna have music and dancing and celebration, right? Less like just hardcore political speech and more celebration. And then I'm very optimistic and bullish about the future. So To me, my biggest goal is to get my right wing family, my conspiracy family, to like shift their mindset from one of being persecuted to one of taking advantage of the opportunities that are available to us. And so I'm going to encourage people to build real life things. I'm still planning to build my great library and bring back the bell towers is like two of my favorite projects that we'll obviously support and promote. And then make America healthy again. I think that we're about to enter into this time where AI and technology is going to give people a lot more time. And the smartest, richest people I know are really putting their energy and resources into solving one simple problem. And that problem is, what are people going to do that gives them purpose if they no longer have to do a 9 to 5? If they no longer have to be a wage slave? And I think solving that problem is going to be a big part of like the next 5 to 10 years. And I think it's going to free people, a lot of people up to concentrate on making themselves healthier, which is not the simplest, right? Sounds really simple to say, but like the process of doing it, everyone's on a different health journey and everyone like has different challenges that go that way. So I think it's going to be really interesting and really rewarding to encourage people to health, not to be afraid of AI and technology, and then to celebrate the blessings that we've all been given.
You know, Dustin, there are many reasons why I so much enjoy talking with you and your movements in that. I 100% agree that that Americans are going to have more time, more, not so much leisure time on their hand, but more time to do industry. I think we're going to see big changes um, in the way that Americans live going forward. And I don't think that's obvious to many people. I think many are frustrated and out of hope. But you know, I love also you mentioned the library, and you know I like libraries, but I really like the bell towers too. And I grew up in a town that still had a bell that rang, and at some point they stopped ringing it. But you know, I like Graham Hancock and all those vibrations and ancient technologies too. So, um, but and I don't know if I have a question in there, but I love your vision for the future. And I love that you're keeping it positive and moving it away from this notion of persecution. But maybe to that notion of persecution, we are on the cusp of Trump's inauguration. Um, you have endured persecution for the last 4 years of a sort, as have many Americans and many political figures. What do you see as this inauguration comes, policy wise? What are some of your thoughts going on in the political arena right now?
Wow. So I had some trepidation about what Trump's second. I mean, to me, it was never really a challenge. The moment that Trump embraced crypto and technology and restoring America by bringing like all that power back to us, made right that it was never a question, obviously. But I didn't know where he was going to go. But when Donald Trump a couple days ago brought up that he's going to create the External Revenue Service and very strongly hinted that that is the first step towards the elimination of the income tax, I could not have been more excited about the scope of the vision, which is if there's one thing I've come to believe, politics is terrible because nobody in politics has any big fucking ideas. Like it's literally like, let's work around the margins to figure out how we could save like a couple dollars here and there, herpader. And to me, it's just gross. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, why can't we get back to a place where we have a vision for how to make life better and exciting and fruitful and productive and purposeful? And to me, and I have so much love for Ron Paul, it's ridiculous, because I think back to Ron Paul's time in Congress, where he was seen as just like this lone curmudgeon who could never get anything done and just lectured everybody about the Constitution and liberty all the time. And yet now, the to me, the major planks are basically everything I was hearing from Ron Paul 20 and 30 years ago. And if Donald Trump is successful, and if we're successful at eliminating the oppression of an income tax, maybe even a property tax, you don't have freedom if everything you earn is taxed. You do not have freedom if, or you don't own property, you don't have property rights if your property is taken away, if you don't pay annual taxes on it. And so for me, that this was the signal from President Trump that in his second term, he is not looking to make small changes. He's looking to make the biggest possible changes. To me, eliminating the income tax would be freeing in a way. The generations from now, people will look back and they will be stunned that we had an income tax for as long as we did. Because essentially, it's slavery or indentured servitude. It's insane.
It's robbing us in the future. I 100% agree. And if Donald Trump is able to get rid of the income tax, I think it'll be one of the greatest things in American history to get off of the income tax. You mentioned the strategic reserves. What are you thinking and hearing about the crypto strategic reserves? And could both with regards to states, because Wyoming and now Oklahoma, and I don't know how many other states are talking about their own strategic reserves. So what do you think is going on there overall?
Yeah, so incredibly excited. So my actually my friend Samuel Armas in Florida it looks like he's got the votes to get a Florida strategic reserve. I think that Donald Trump in the first day is about to make some mind-blowingly bullish executive orders and statements on his vision for crypto and how we bring it back. We bring it right, like you're no longer gonna have to run off to Dubai in order to like be a crypto pioneer and build your crypto empire. So it also I laughed today because it was another stark reminder that the worst thing about Bitcoin are the Bitcoin maxis who are having a little bit of a meltdown today because like the word is out that Donald Trump is also looking at a strategic reserve for assets that aren't just Bitcoin, but that were American founded. And I think this is incredibly bullish for the entire industry. I wish that the Bitcoin maxis understood that just because the US government might also start having a stake in the different parts of the future, XRP as the transactional settlement layer, Solana, maybe even casino layer. Um, those are things that are good for the industry as a whole and ultimately good for Bitcoin. Even though we're supposed right, they still want us to pretend that only Bitcoin exists and everything else is just garbage, you guys. All right. Ah!
Oh, it all pales, it all pales in the face of Chia, but we won't go there.
What?
Um,
What? Well, listen, I've seen some things about Chia. Right, I haven't had a chance to talk to my Chia boys. Looking very bullish over there. Very, very bullish.
yeah,
Like
we had
I saw
big.
some of the banking news and other stuff. I think it's going to surprise people. Like I've been telling people for years that you guys actually were way ahead on the tech, and that I don't know. It feels to me like Chia is just begging for a Steve Jobs figure who can like package the superior tech you guys have and deliver it to the people in a way they understand it.
It could be Grant. But I hate to
Coming
put
soon. Coming soon, TM.
No more there. No more there. Dustin, what about?
Wait, Grant? Are you a Steve Jobs? Or are you a Wozniak? Because I've always seen you more as like the genius who builds everything.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. I mean, I've had to straddle both worlds, so I don't know. It's I feel like I've had to do both. I definitely really love building tech, and that's something that I've done and done a lot. But I've also gotten out in the face and been in front of the people. So here I am. I'm on a talk radio show. Day in day out. Here we go. I've got the turtleneck. Let's put it on. Let's fucking go.
I was gonna say I've seen you in a black turtleneck and wireframe glasses. No, but Dustin, what about Trump has grand, huge ideas from Greenland to Canada to ending wars across the world to repealing the income tax, but he's also seen an unprecedented amount of interference with that. And as we close in on the inauguration date, what kind of fears do you have? What kind of what are you thinking about when you think about like getting to the finish line and getting through the first 100 days?
So I guess I'm in a different camp than a lot of people on this, which is I actually think that the fact that Donald Trump won the popular vote and right beyond winning the like sweeping electoral victory, what's interesting is they threw everything they had to try to stop him, and he still beat them. Right? The media hysteria that Trump is Hitler. Right? That was the closing argument of the media and the left, that Trump is literally Hitler. They became the meme in real life. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to imprison him for the rest of his life. And when all of that failed, they tried twice to like kinetically kill him. And yet he won. And so I think that we're actually going to see a lot different, like the opposition to Trump. You cannot sustain that level of just pure hysteria, like in perpetuity. And so I think we're going to see a lot of it burnt out, and we're going to see like a lot of acquiescence from the media and other things. I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as we've experienced in the first 8 years of Trump's political career. And so I'm pretty confident. And then I'll add this: Kash Patel is coming for the fucking bad guys. Sorry about my language, but Kash is going to wreck shop. Pam Bondi, if you've been watching the hearings the last couple days, they are not playing this silly game where they have to pretend like these Democrat senators are winnable votes. They're going right after them. And I think you're going to see that from a law enforcement perspective. I know that Donald Trump and his administration are putting a major emphasis on releasing a lot of the files and documents that the government has kept in order to protect themselves. And so JFK files, Epstein, Diddy, UFOs, UAP, hidden technologies. I think people are going to be surprised by how much the Trump administration is going to release. And I think that's also going to put the plotters who did a bunch of the most evil stuff to a bunch of us, they're the ones who are going to be on defense. And we're going to be able to pursue this positive agenda of like building the future that we want to build for ourselves.
Yeah, I watched some of the Hegseth and the Bondi confirmations. As Cash Patel, I don't know if Cash Patel has been up yet, but very excited to see to catch up on them if I miss those confirmation hearings or to watch them when they happen. Um, I was very impressed with the pushback that Pam Bondi gave, and I thought it was warranted and fair. I think that senators should be much more wary of trotting out their half truths and half stories and political narratives. And I kind of wished that Pam had been even more so had laid out the case of their political nature even more so. So that was refreshing to see. You know, Zuckerberg sort of changed his tune with regards to the Facebook, the censorship in Facebook in the last 4 years and even before that. And I think a lot of the division and anger, when I see division and anger and frustration in American people, sometimes I think, well, they've been given half a story and they've been curated. They're being emotionally manipulated and have been for some time. Do you expect to see that thaw coming into the next administration? And if so, are we going to start to see maybe some of the populist, the blue left, the Bernie Bros, the those who might have supported and understood and listened to Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, John Fetterman? Are we going to see a wave of populism come to meet us with the MAGA and MAHA movements? Is that am I thinking too starry eyed if I think that's going to happen?
I don't think so. In fact, I think if you look at history, we are actually dramatically overdue for a political realignment. Which is when I think about like my professional career in politics, like the last 15 years, in some ways I'm almost embarrassed and disgusted by the fact that we're still the issues that are brought up over and over and over again are the same issues we've been arguing about for 40 or 50 years that have almost zero relevance on the modern world and modern times. And I think what we're witnessing is that there is a realignment happening over the issues that matter. And more than right, and I tend to think of this a little different. I love that you framed it as populist because I don't think it's left right. I think it's going to be around tech. And so, right, I think the new battlefields that need like the new issues that people are going to align politically over, it's not going to be about abortion and social issues and right, like if Trump succeeds on the income tax, not even about taxation. That's no one is going to ever claim that they were for the income tax when we get rid of it. It's going to be around like tech ethics and privacy and surveillance and how the Constitution applies in a digital age. And I think that's where we're going to see like a new divide form. And I think it's going to be interesting because what I saw with this election is that the Mark Andreessens and the Weinsteins and the RFKs and the Tulsi Gabbards, um, what you're hearing and what I've seen from my experiences with the Silicon Valley venture capitalists, the tech bros, my crypto fam, is that we're ready to move on from how politics has been. We're tired of these endless, like over the top debates where everybody has their rehearsed lines and they say the same stupid stuff, right? Like on cue. And it to be honest, it's boring and it's not relevant. So I think we are about to witness a political realignment in a big way. I think if you look at history, like to be honest, we're probably even 20 or 30 years overdue for something like that happening. They've kept it like it is, and they've fiercely defended it through media and social media manipulation. because it benefits them when we're so equally divided on these hot button issues. But I don't think there's any stopping the fact that we need to have these very serious debates and conversations around things like AI ethics and surveillance ethics and privacy and the role that privacy needs to play even in a digital world where surveillance can be ubiquitous and overwhelming. And so I think we're entering into this interesting phase where you're going to find yourself aligned with somebody on these new issues that you would have been diametrically opposed to on the old hot button issues. And to be honest, it's really fun. Like one of the coolest things about like running around with RFK and Maha the last couple months of the election is, like if you are if you've been listening to Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and the right wing, right? Like I know what your thoughts are on every possible political issue. And it's not all that exciting to like have discussions about it to me. However, like getting together with people who come from the other political side and finding that we agree on things like tech surveillance and media and other things, those kind of conversations are actually very stimulating and productive. And so I think it's going to be really exciting. Like when we tour around the country, the hope is that we bring out all kinds of new people. There's a very world fair type element where we're hoping to introduce the world to AI and blockchain tech and how it's not just one big umbrella, that there are different features, and one leads us down a very dark dystopian path and one leads us to a renaissance. And it's up to us to make sure that we have the discussions and put the guardrails in place so that this tech is empowering to everybody and not the handful of oligarchs who would like to monopolize and hoard it so that they can exploit their advantage in us over the markets.
You mentioned Bobby Kennedy and also the exploitation of of everything. Bobby it's talked about reining in pharmaceutical companies. We just saw the FDA ban the use of red dye number 3, which might slightly impact some grand food companies, budgets or production, God knows what.
I'm excited to have somebody in that health and human services, who can actually do a couple of push-ups and a pull-up. I think it's about time that we actually have somebody who's somewhat fit and in shape and has a sense of what it means to be healthy, for a change.
Well, and there are so many aspects of Bobby Kennedy that we love. I mean, not only does he, does he do all that? I like things that he engages in a little bit of fasting. He thinks about the a multiplicity of solutions and isn't devoted to one agenda item. But Dustin, you've talked with Bobby. You've been around some of that Maha team, maybe deeply into that Maha team, and you think in terms of scope. I love that you usually have a grasp of what's going to be possible. What do you see going on? What is Bobby going to be able to achieve in this administration?
I think it's going to blow people's minds. So, right, like, I don't think people realize how significant the red dye thing or how ridiculous it is that it's just happening now. I've known that red dye had endocrine disruptor issues and like broader health issues for probably close to 20 years. It's banned in most other countries, and it's even banned from cosmetics in our country. And yet, they've been putting it in our food. And I think that what we're about to witness, and I think the red dye thing is just the beginning, but another will be the fluoridation of our community water supplies. I think that's going to happen remarkably quickly. And the crazy thing about Bobby Kennedy is that the characterization of him by the media is these like this wild-eyed conspiracy theory kook. But the truth of the matter is that most of what he wants to accomplish is just opening up research into these places that previously were banned, right? Which is, we should be able to look at the potential side effects of different medicines and vaccines and issues. And I think from the agriculture and medical side, that just Bobby Kennedy being in place is going to cut, right? You guys remember when Mitt Romney talked about, like, oh, we'll make the Mexicans self-deport. I have a feeling that we're going to watch agriculture and pharma start to self-regulate in anticipation of the fact that they're no longer in control of the regulators who are going to look into and study some of the more harmful stuff. They will therefore in advance start cleaning shit up so that, right, it doesn't, it's not done after, you know, these groundbreaking studies are allowed to be conducted. I think it's going to be, I could not, I think it's going to be very telling and interesting to find out, for people to find out just how much of everything in our grocery stores is really back to the same megacorp cabal, right? The Vanguards and Blackstreets, and how much their control over K Street and the regulators have allowed them to bypass a bunch of things that other countries have already banned. And I think America's about to get a whole lot healthier.
Yeah, I think with Bobby also and his history in litigating, litigating especially Big Ag, Monsanto, and some of the things that went on there. And then I when I turn and look at say a co-op of raisin growers in California suing a raisin farmer because they're selling too many raisins, and we begin to I think Bobby really understands the artificial scarcity that a couple of ag companies have perpetuated in order to maintain their price level. And I hope that he also helps push that conversation. But there's another candidate I want to talk about, Tulsi Gabbard. And you mentioned surveillance, and Mike Johnson and so many of our House members, like they talk a big game, and then they get into office and they get drug into a skiff, and all of a sudden they're singing the importance of the FISA court. How much is Tulsi Gabbard going to be able to change this trend that we've seen, where it's okay to spy on Americans, it's okay to abuse the Bill of Rights? Is she going to be able to do much there?
I'm scared on this one, so I was optimistic, and then the Oklahoma senator was James Lankford. Right, I think Tulsi had the hardest path to confirmation, the most like internal pushback, and a bunch of the senators that she needs for confirmation seem to have pushed her on the FISA issue in particular away from like just like the abuse of it. I mean, I saw yesterday Senator Mike Lee, who's absolutely awesome, um, fact checked Senator Cornyn in real time on the FISA issue, as Cornyn tried to claim that it's never been used against Americans. It was used against me. They put me and Jen under 18 months under complete and total surveillance using FISA, no due process, and never charged with anything. It's got to be reformed. But the military industrial complex and the surveillance state seems hell-bent on keeping it in place. And I hope that she's saying what she has to say to get confirmed, and then we'll see action, but I'm not sure.
Well, I think she is a smart and calculating person. I'm impressed with her. I think she's one of the best people we could have hoped for to fight that fight. So, and with the likes of Kash Patel and the FBI, maybe they can do something about it. But maybe getting off of the Trump cabinet, the incoming cabinet or administration, I have seen on Twitter and a couple of other places a couple of words put together, and they they give me also more hope for the upcoming election. You know, this is Trump's second term, and I'm already looking ahead. I've seen Stockton 2028, and how much of that is Dustin fandom and MAGA and Maha fandom, and how much of that is a possibility? Because I for one think that you are a brilliant politician and that you have your thumb on the hopes of blue collar populist Americans. So is that something that you take with demure? Is that something you demure, or is that a possibility in the future?
So, would I ever? So, if I was that, I would never run to be one of 435 people in the House or one of 100 in the Senate. Like, no way. And the odds are as close to zero as it could be that I'm ever going to be president of the United States. However, there are several things, like in politics, I've learned that you can move and present. And I think of Ron Paul to this. Ron Paul was that lone voice for a long time, right? And yet managed to shape the very concept that we have of liberty by
Inspired a generation. I think Ron Paul just is is going to be looked back so favorably. I couldn't agree more. He inspired so many. He was the lone voice until he wasn't, right?
Yeah, and now everybody's there. And so, right, if I saw the opportunity to change and to help move that political realignment we talked about earlier, like, I don't know, I'm good at building presidential campaigns, and it might be kind of fun to go ruffle a few feathers. I've said that my campaign slogan will be "Put the bureaucrats in FEMA camps," and I've pledged to Saddam the Congress on on the first time that we give the State of the Union.
Beautiful slogans, and I know you mean it in truth and maybe a little bit in tongue in cheek too. You know, you've told me in the past that whenever the Department of Justice came after you, they seized all of your belongings from your home, that you had a massive mailing list going into that, and that it was throttled in some way afterwards. Have you been able to use that mailing list to its breadth, that contact list, or is it still throttled? And if the Trump administration comes to power, do you think that it's going to come back, or are you still rebuilding?
Yeah, so and this is, so I had and was the owner of one of the 3 or 4 most powerful and revenue generating databases in the country. I've raised between 550 and $500 million for candidates, campaigning causes every cycle, until they shut it off. And I still haven't completely figured out, but you know, when you manage large data sets and you get blacklisted and censored, usually the way I'd solve that in the past is you start breaking it down into smaller and smaller batches until something gets through that you can build off of. And I took my millions of donors and supporters that were in my databases, and I got the batches down to as small as 25, and never was able to get a single batch through. I believe that the way that it was done is that that data that was taken from me, if you message, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5 people that were in that database, immediate flagged at the ISP level. And so, and now it's been almost 5 years, and data ages very quickly. People move on to new emails because of the spam and other stuff. They get new phone numbers. And so that data, I will never be able to just like flip a switch and get it back. However, it's fun.
Dustin, I think it's time to get you hooked up with Mixmaster. Like we did that big investigation into the early days of Bitcoin and remailers and anonymous remailers. I think that's your solution right there, brother. We got to talk about that offline.
Yeah, well, and I 100% down, because here's the deal, which is I kind of made the decision to abandon that data because it's compromised, right? Like I know that the feds and a bunch of bad people, like, obviously are able to monitor it down to a very granular level. So I'm gonna rebuild. And so, like, when I tour the Don Colossus around the country, when we're turning out, I have no doubt I'm going to turn out 10 to 100,000 people in every city we go to. We're going to rebuild that network, and we're going to rebuild it in a way that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, and I kind of like Elon, but I'm not going to let any big tech oligarch have the ability to flip a switch and cut me off from the people who have supported me all these years.
Well, I think I'm glad that you persist in your political movements. I think that the most qualifying thing to look for in politicians, and I don't know if you're a politician, but is communication. And I think that some people go into government and want to change everything, and some people look at government and communicate the things that are wrong and the possibilities for change in the future. And I think you do that incredibly well. So I hope that your platform grows and your following grows. And if there is a Stockton 50 or some number in the future, I'll be thrilled. So Dustin, anything else you want to say before we close it out?
Yeah, well, no, and listen, I appreciate it, Lucas, but what I'll say is, I actually have been more of an outlaw. Like, I've lived outside of the traditional boundaries that we've been supposed to stay within and systems. Like, I've never really been able to fit in any of those systems, and the cool part about it is it's allowed me to continue just to be myself, because they were never going to accept me in the first place. And so, I just want, if there's one core to my message for a long time has been about being self-sustaining, right? Like, taking control of your immediate needs, your shelter, your food, your water, localizing your supply chain, all of those things. It was very defensive. And I believe we're entering into an era that all of us need to just shift our mindset. And this is our opportunity to build the world that we want to live in and that we want our posterity to live in. And there's never been a time like this for us to go get it done. So do it, right? Go build that business that you want. Go figure out how you want to organize your community. I think we're going to have experiments in governance and monetary and bartering and trading. I think everything is on the chopping block, and we get to be a part of this really cool time in history where collectively we get to design what the future looks like. And that's pretty freaking cool time to be alive. And I hope to do everything I can to help facilitate that with the library and with the bell towers and with the tours and really just getting people together with each other in person again. I think that's how I think that's how the change actually happens. And I mean, think about, I think about this maybe happens once every 400 or 500 years that we have the opportunity to really rethink and overhaul everything the way we do right now. So you know what? Like, start thinking about it and get away from the bad guys are on their way out. They're about to be exposed in a big way, and nothing is standing between us and the world we want to build. So let's get it done.
Dustin, as a last thing, you've got a new podcast with Ian Carroll, the Maha podcast. Where can people listen to it? How can they keep track of what you're doing in the future?
Yeah, so you would be hard pressed to find three people who are mixed up in the craziest shit in the world than me, Ian Carroll, and Kyle Kemper at this point. You guys don't know, Kyle is Justin Trudeau's based brother, who also is like a founding pioneer in crypto. Amazing guy. Ian is maybe the most, like, I thought I was doing it big. Ian is maybe the most controversial figure, like, the last several months. Just
I remember when Ian first started, he was just talking about shampoo, and dude has just blown up. I love it, though. He's great. He's fantastic.
Yeah, no, he is one of the coolest dudes ever. I'm still not even sure like how lucky we are. We follow Ian. He's much easier to find with his millions of followers everywhere. But we're gonna do it once a week. We were supposed to do it last night. We're recording today because we're all running around with the inauguration and other stuff. But for what all I think all three of us are really excited about is we're really putting an emphasis on the light. So, right, like the subject material that Ian's often tackling and that like we're often in can be really dark and daunting. And so for the three of us, we wanted to put something together where we emphasize the light and accomplishment and the people who are building real stuff. And so yeah, we'll be doing that once a week, usually on Wednesdays, but we delayed it, so we'll be recording it today.
Hey, just a quick thing too. If you get a chance, mention to Ian that there's something cool going on that I think in the whole GameStop saga, he'd be very interested to hear about what's going on in the Chia ecosystem. So let him know if he wants to have a little conversation about that. We love to chat with him about it. I think he'd be super interested to hear what's cooking over there.
Oh, for sure, man. Like, we get on the phone with him. Like, the great thing about Ian is he's just genuinely curious, and like, it's nice to see somebody because all of my experiences with Ian, he's just interested to like learn, and it's nice to see somebody and follow that journey as it happens. So, would love to like hook up and get done. And I'm looking forward to getting more involved in the Chio ecosystem myself. You know, I've always loved you guys, and excited for what's coming because I think, like I said, I think people are going to be surprised, and Chia is going to be one of the things that surprise.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. We'll watch for the podcast, and yeah, we'll see you next time on FoMO.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, boys.
Great to have you, Dustin. See you later.